Welcome to San Diego Comic-Con at Home 2021 for IDW Publishing's Comics Kitchen panel. I'm your hostess, Nikki Hendry, and I'm also known as that Hangry Girl. With me today, we have James Albon, who's an author and artist of The Delicacy. Hi, James. Round of applause for you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, and we're so excited to have you. And also Edgar Camacho, author and artist of The Onion Skin. Round of applause for you as well. Both of these delicious new graphic novels from Top Shelf are available right now. So obviously, James, Edgar, you guys know all of 2020 has been over Zoom, at home, in our couch, in sweatpants, and we've all been talking heads on Zoom. So we're going to do something fun and different today. While we're having our interview, I'm going to interview you guys about both of your graphic novels. We are going to do something fun. I'm going to cook, and you guys are going to cook the dish that you guys are going to draw the dish that I'm cooking. So in real time, we are going to be making beef and mushroom enchiladas. Edgar, I have to ask you, have you ever had a Mexican dish with mushrooms in it?
Yes, a lot of dishes.
Really?
Yeah, I'm done with mushrooms and a lot of soups, like there is one particular that is called Aztec soup. That is just like a lot of mushroom, tortilla, fried tortilla, and chili.
Ooh.
It's really good.
Nice. And James, mushroom is the biggest thing in your book, The Delicacy. So please tell me what your favorite dish is with mushrooms.
Well, writing The Delicacy came from a funny place for me because I actually don't like mushrooms. My sort of dislike for them was actually the kind of jumping off point. I wanted to write something about a food that I kind of felt I had a strong reaction to, but the reaction was kind of disgust. So writing the book came from a strong place for me, but I'm not a mushroom man at all.
Well, neither am I, but mushrooms was a big thing in your book, and Mexican food was a big thing in your book, Edgar. So we are going to make those beef and mushroom enchiladas. So you guys want to get started? All right, let's go.
Let's do this.
All right, so first I'm going to add some beef into the skillet to brown it. All right, so Edgar, let's start with you. Please tell everyone where you're from and what kind of comics you like to draw.
I am from Mexico, the southern neighbor of the United States. In general, I draw a lot of everyday life. I like to do a lot of action scenes too, and a lot of superhero things, but in general, my work is about everyday life. So that's the kind of work I like to do, a lot of slice of life and a lot of funny comic stripes,
Okay, I love that. Then James, where are you from and what kind of comics do you like to draw?
So I'm from Edinburgh in Scotland, and I think similarly to Edgar, I really like drawing from life. A big part of my work is going out with a sketchbook and going to cafes and restaurants and bars and, just drawing life as I see it directly from observation, and then taking those sorts of characters and those situations that I've seen and putting them into graphic novels. So writing a graphic novel for me about a restaurant was really exciting because I love restaurants and it's such a big part of, my personality and my interests that it was a great world to explore and get into more detail in writing about.
Yes, I love that. So James, you talk about your book, being about mushrooms, but please tell us about the main characters, and why did they start working with food?
So the two characters in the book are a pair of brothers called Tulip and Rowan, who've moved from a kind of small remote island on the west coast of Scotland and have moved to the big city of London with the intention of starting a restaurant. Their relationship with food is that Rowan is a farmer and a market gardener, and so lives close to the soil, believes in organic produce and using his own hands to grow vegetables. Tulip is an ambitious cook, so when they open their restaurant together, the plan is that Rowan will grow the vegetables and then Tulip will cook these amazing meals in this restaurant. They sort of see Scottish cooking as being wholesome and organic and authentic, and they're hoping to bring it to London with the intention of sort of overpowering the world of fast food and the world of processed food and what they see as sort of polluted, corrupted culture around food. So that's their sort of high-minded ambitions when they go to London. Although when they get into it, it doesn't entirely go as planned.
No, it doesn't, James. There's a huge plot twist in your book. I can't even wait to get talk about that in a little bit. So just so you guys know, I added some chopped up white mushrooms and some white onion into the mix. Also, Edgar, your book is about, the burger truck and the spices that go into your meals. I have a spice mix made of cumin, paprika, some ground chili powder, as well as some little other spices. That's a secret.
Yeah.
But Edgar, tell us about your book, the main characters in your book, and why they started to get involved with food.
Yeah, my book has two main characters, Rolando and Nera. And Rolando is a square guy who follows every rule, He's just like a boring guy who goes to a boring office job. And Nera is the opposite of him. Nera is always looking for something to complete her. And one of her dreams is to cook, having a life cooking around the entire country. So with Rolando, when they meet each other, they change their life forever and take a step into the void, like dares to do something that never done and enjoy it along the way, even if they don't have to cook, because they don't know how to do it. It's just like an adventure, like, oh, it's gonna be great if I just go and become a chef of a food truck. And that's the way of all the book, like take the first step to do something you want to do without knowing if you're going to succeed.
That is very interesting you say that, because that was an overall theme in your book, that they both didn't know how to cook, yet they were running a food truck together and they wanted to run away and like do this whole big business with the food truck, but neither of them know how to cook. So it was definitely interesting.
It's a good metaphor, like the truck is abandoned and rusted, like the main character, like Rolando. And with Nera, they fix it and start moving with the food truck along the way. So it's a good metaphor, like finding something that it has to need to be fixed and then fix it on the way and enjoy all the ride. I think that's the whole story in the book. Enjoy the ride even if you don't have success on it. If you like to cook, go ahead and do it. If you like to draw, do comics. Doesn't matter if you think you are good or not. It's just take a step forward and do it.
So you guys, in both books, both of your main characters obviously have an amazing success with the food business, but their successes do create some problems. So Edgar, please tell us what is with that biker gang in your book.
It's just like, in every business, when someone is successful just by the night of just one day to another, there is always someone who will not like it. In my book, Motorcycle Gang has a monopoly of food trucks. The Motorcycle Gang is threatened by this business growth of Rolando and Nera, and they decide to finish it because it's not in their world. There is no healthy competition. It's just like we rule the food around here, and who are these guys that appeared from nowhere? That's why the Motorcycle Gang goes for them.
Yeah, tries to sabotage them and their success. It was interesting how you weaved that in there. James, please tell me about Tulip's collapse, his psychological collapse, his desperation, his pressure that he was feeling. I need to know all about him because your book was insane. It was so lovely story about these two brothers, and then all of a sudden a plot twist.
Well, it's something that happens to all of us, when you become a millionaire, as constantly happens to me, you suddenly don't know what to do. You're punished by your own success. There's kind of endless pressure to perform better for your clients, and you end up betraying your family and destroying everything you love. Hasn't that happened to you?
I wish I could say I was a millionaire, but no, I feel you on the pressure. And especially when you're in a business with a sibling or a family member, you feel like they're always going to be there for you. And sometimes they just reach their breaking point.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it was very important to have this idea that they start out with this really high-minded sort of moral goal. They want to bring wholesome organic food that in a way is kind of uncompromising and is locally produced and is, has all these virtues to it. And then when Tulip becomes richer and richer and more successful, he starts to realize, oh, wait, if I cut corners, there'll be even more wealth for me. There'll be even more pressure to expand. A small local market garden can sustain perhaps enough produce for one small restaurant. But if you want to open a chain, if you want to open internationally, he starts getting this pressure to open branches in New York or Tokyo or Los Angeles. And it's that pressure that makes him compromise his morals more and more as the story goes on.
Your book was interesting. I didn't even know I was reading through 300 pages because it went that quickly. Like it was constant action here and there. All right. So what I'm going to roll the tortillas with is actually corn tortillas. Do you guys like corn or flour when you have Mexican food? Edgar?
Yeah, it's a lot of our food is based on corn, and there are many types of tortillas. The blue ones, the yellow ones, white ones. Yeah, and flour, like more heavy. In the north, it's more just like a burrito.
Like burritos, right? With flour more so. Yeah. What about you, James?
Well, I have another embarrassing secret to share, which is that I've never eaten enchiladas.
What?
I think in a way, this is an interesting thing about it. I know we'll talk a little bit more about sort of food and culture and nationality in a bit, but there's not a lot of Mexican food in Britain, actually, because of these histories of sort of immigration and diaspora and colonialism. There's not a big Mexican population in Britain, obviously in the same way that there is in, the south of the United States, especially. And so while London is incredible for cosmopolitan food that's come from, say, East Asia, South Asia, mainland Europe, we don't have a lot of Mexican food here. And I actually asked a Mexican friend of mine in London, oh, can you recommend any restaurants? Where should we go? I really want to try some good Mexican food. And she flatly said to me, there are no good authentic restaurants in London.
What? That
may be unfair, but she claimed that I could not find authentic Mexican food in London. So this is as much a learning experience for me as anything else watching you cook this.
Wow. So interesting. Talk about a coincidence that both of you guys' books were centered around food. So James, I know you said a little bit about how you got started in this, but could you please, repeat, why you guys decided to make this book about food when you don't even like mushrooms?
Well, I think for me, although I'm not a big fan of mushrooms, I love gastronomy and I love restaurants and cooking in general. I think it's such an interesting world because it combines obviously something we need to do to live. Eating is such a fundamental part of just being alive. But at the same time, we have a world of fine dining where we've dressed it up as this hugely complex cultural thing that means so many different things about who we are, who we want to be in society, what we aspire to be, where we come from. So I think exploring that sort of tension between cooking being something that's very everyday and eating being something that's very everyday, and then contrasting that with this world that's sort of glamorous and extremely wealthy and extremely high pressure, for me, is just such an interesting situation to explore. And it's such a fertile ground for finding really interesting character dynamics and interesting tensions between characters. So that was a big part of the inspiration. Other than that, it was just the love of food. As I say, despite not being a fan of mushrooms, just before I started working on this book, I was living in Lyon in France, which is like the great French gastronomic city. So we had no shortage of really good options for going out and eating like amazing French food when we were there in Lyon.
Wow, that's interesting. And Edgar, what about you? Why did you decide to write a book about food? Draw it as well.
Yeah, it's just the same thing. I love food and I love the flavors and the enjoyment, that it means to share food with someone you love. Because here in Mexico, it's very traditional when you eat to sit in a big table with all the family and, the grandma, the grandchildren. And that's what I love about food, because bring people together. And here in every occasion, like Dia de Muertos is like Day of the Dead, we put food to the people who are no longer with us, and we are always eating things here, and every social interaction has to do with food mostly. So that's why I want to tell a story about that.
Yeah, I mean, I say it often. Food is a love language and it brings people together. But I'm seeing, Edgar, yours looks so good. You're drawing. Tell us about what you have on top. Is that cheese or what'd you throw on top?
Yeah, I think some cheese and like a little vegetables. I don't know if like here we put some lettuce on it, you know, and the
Oh,
recipe, I don't know if you have like avocado and some,
okay.
you know, pumpkins, chopping pumpkins, you know, something like that, you know, and I'm doing with cheese and some melted cheese and cream.
Nice. All right. What about you, James? Yours is very colorful already.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just laying down the ingredients just as you are, Nikki. I'm just, we've got some beef, we've got some chopped onions up here, some mushrooms going down, and I'll look at how to wrap them up when I'm just see how you do it.
Yep.
You know?
I'm going to do that like right here. If you can see where I'm pointing right here.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going to start wrapping them.
For me, I think I always like to approach both drawing and writing actually, by laying down the biggest strokes first, laying down big areas of color and then adding in the details. And I think in a way, cooking can be a bit like that you start off with your beef and you start off with your chopped onions as these big, bold flavors that are sort of underpin the dish. And then you become more and more precise as the spices go in and the herbs go in. I think there's an interesting parallel between those two activities.
Yes, there is. There's a huge connection between food and life as well, you guys. Food, there's an old cliche, you are what you eat. So, James, tell us about, the connection between food and life in your book. I know you spoke a little bit on about like the Tulips character, but tell us a little more.
Well, I really like as I mentioned, the connection between sort of what food represents as a social commodity. This idea that you can make a statement about whether you're, wealthy or the sort of life you want to aspire to. And there's a certain glamour associated with restaurants and with fine dining culture, especially in a big cosmopolitan city like London. There's almost a bit of a sort of one-upmanship of who can discover the most exotic restaurant or the most sort of offbeat food that's becomes the next big hit. So that's a big part of it for me. And that sort of combination of glamour, but also in a way sort of fads and sort of unsubstantial trends in contrast to wholesome organic food and family food and the food that we eat day to day with our friends and our family, and the food that kind of is a fundamental thing rather than a sort of showy, flashy thing. I think also as the plot twist of the book builds up to, I do find there's something quite funny about the everydayness of food, that it is just ordinary matter that we find in our lives, that we eat meat or we eat vegetables, we eat things that have just come straight out of the soil. And then we ourselves, in a horrifying way, are also made of meat.
Right, exactly. And Edgar, what about you? I know you said food brings people together.
Yeah, and I use food as a metaphor to express that we are like ingredients that give flavor to the lives of other people and vice versa, It's like we are not entirely complete without the other person, and vice versa. We bring the flavor of their lives, and they bring some flavors too to our own. So I think that's what I talk in my book. It's like a good recipe, It's like you add some sugar to something that is a very salt dish, Like, why do you gonna do that? But it's part of the recipe, and the result is unexpected and delicious.
Right, exactly. So how long, Edgar, did it take you to draw your book? How long?
It was like 3 months or less, because it
3
was,
months.
yeah.
That's so fast.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was because it won a prize here in Mexico, and the deadline for the delivery of the book, it was so rushed. So
what prize did it win?
What?
What prize did it win?
It's the National Young Award of Graphic Novel here in Mexico.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Yeah, thank you. But it was crazy, just delivering the book in time. It was just a good school to make comics.
And James, what about you? How long did it take you? Clearly not as fast as Edgar.
No, wait, like 2.5 years. really long
What?
time.
Oh my
I
God.
worked on it for so long, and there's so much. Even just drawing out the pages is sort of, I have a routine, and I try and get up and efficiently get through drawing 2 finished pages a day. But before I even start on that, there's a year of research and drawing out roughs and developing the ideas for the script and all these different elements that sort of take lots and lots of sort of slow, careful planning. There's a lot of thinking about something and then thinking, oh, is that the right path for the story to go down, or should it be adjusted? Should it be changed? Which again, in a way, almost goes to this similarity, this metaphor of a similarity between cooking and drawing, where as you cook, of course, you should taste while you're cooking and have an impression of the dish as it develops. And I think that there's a similar thing for me when I'm developing the script, or when I'm developing these different visual ideas, where I want to sort of put the work down on the paper, but then take a step back and think, is that really working? Does it need to be adjusted? And so the process is quite slow and reiterative in a way.
Yeah. Speaking of you doing like the repetition of like putting it down, does it work? The research you did for this, because you don't like mushrooms, like is that why it took you 2.5 years also to draw it? Is because you had to do all of these research on organic foods and.
Yeah. Every night I'd sit down in front of a plate of mushrooms and try and eat one. And I go, look, oh, no. But I read a lot about cooking. I read a lot about the history of particularly sort of haute cuisine French cooking. I went to some friends of mine who work in restaurant industry or like own restaurants. I was lucky enough to be able to go into their kitchens and do painting, like drawing from life, drawing their cooks working directly in the kitchen, which was really interesting. I bombarded them with hundreds of questions, and I read a lot as well, which is a very useful part of research for me. So that was a lot of the sort of research sides of things, which really gave me a huge new appreciation for the hard work that everyone in the restaurant industry works at.
Yeah, that's funny, because I have to, full disclosure, I'm not a huge mushroom fan either, but because it was such a big hit in your book, I felt like I needed to do a recipe that was an honor to both you guys' books. But Edgar, I have to ask, the truck you have, the food truck for your main characters, it's a burger truck?
It's like chili dogs, all that stuff, like very like fries, and patatas, it's all like a very American stereotype, in a good way, like the chili burger, the fries. I love that kind of food,
You do? You love the Americanized burger and fries, huh?
Yeah. The first thing I did when I was to United States in the San Diego Comic-Con in 2015 was eating a chili dog, because I see a lot of movies, a lot of man versus food programs, and that's what I want to eat that thing, that American thing, and
that 7-foot burger with 4 patties and all the stuff in between. That's what you like.
With a lot of fries, like they give you a lot of fries. I bought a burger and $1 of fries, and it was just like this, like a really pile of fries. And I love that, I don't know if it was just a stereotype, but it was delicious, And I think a lot of Mexican food, like enchiladas, tacos, they are a stereotype too, but they are delicious. So what you can say about that, just like enjoy all the different kind of food.
I love that. All right, you guys. So I have them rolled. Now I'm going to put the sauce and cheese on top. So it's going to be red sauce.
All right.
So what goes into red sauce? It's a mysterious name.
Red sauce. It's a mysterious name. It's red enchilada sauce, because enchiladas can be either verde, which is green sauce, or it can be the red sauce.
Okay.
And it's different. These are just going to be mild. They're not going to be hot. I don't do spicy. My husband does, though. He loves jalapenos on everything and hot sauce. So it's kind of like I have to meet him in a happy medium. I'm like, here, put your sauce on the side. And I'm going to put some cheese on top, and then we'll pop these babies in the oven for a few, and they will melt. And you guys, and then we can look at your drawings more in depthly when we do that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Here they are, in case you guys want to see them more closely.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, they look great.
Oh, thank you so much, Edgar. That is a very nice compliment coming from you.
So I'm going to lay down some red sauce on here as well.
All right. Well, let me pop these in, give you guys a beat. All right, guys, let's get back to your books. What do you think the most exciting scene of each of your books? You can only choose one. Edgar, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think one of the scenes that I like the most is just at the beginning, where there is the motorcycle gang and Nera and Rolando are escaping in the food truck, and there are no dialogue on all that scene. So I think that's my favorite scene, and I think it's one of the very exciting, like it reflects the whole mood of the entire book.
Yeah, it was interesting because you don't start off with any, like, no text. It's all just your photos, and they're running into the sunset trying to get away from the biker gang. So it was interesting because I was like, what is this book about? It says onion skin. I don't know. So it was a good lead in. That was a good lead up. James, what about you? One scene. You got a lot.
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but when you have to bury a body in the woods, something dramatic has happened. So there's a scene, suffice to say, where Tulip thinks, well, things are going okay. The restaurant's sort of got off to a good start. They're reasonably successful. Everything's going fine. They're making a good amount of money. He's cracked the business. And then very, very quickly, calamity strikes, and he ends up with a dead body on his hands. And there's this moment of panic, which certainly, if you listen to as much sort of true crime podcasts as I do, you end up imagining, what would I do in that situation? A lot of these people who end up in this like disastrous, calamitous situation don't have any expertise to get out of that. And what do you do if you suddenly find yourself with a dead body? So I don't want to spoil too much, but it's useful to have a farm, I suppose. It's useful to have someone who knows how to dig holes in the soil and bury things.
That is true. So what was your favorite part to draw in your book? Again, one thing. James, start with you.
For me, I think I really enjoyed, from a visual sense, drawing the restaurants, drawing these big, expansive, sort of luxurious places. I really love drawing crowds. I love drawing lots and lots of characters. So having this big space where there's, you can have beautiful decor inside, you can put in dozens and dozens of people all eating these sort of extravagant, sort of over-the-top meals was really, really fun. Those are pages where I would sit back and, really take my time on them and really sort of drink in every minute of the sort of creative process of that drawing. So for me, that's the bit where I'm most excited when I'm drawing.
Yeah. Edgar?
I think one of the things I like to draw here was the food, mainly, and the scenes without dialogue. I think that's the way I express myself better with the drawing than writing. So I love all the scenes that have no dialogue, and that's why my favorite parts of the book and my other comics too. Like these scenes that set the mood of the entire book, but doesn't have any dialogue. I think that's
Yeah, I think as graphic novelists, we're very lucky to sort of be able to express that skill of telling a story without words. And it's quite nice to sort of have the creative control over your process, to be able to just, make something beautiful, but also serves a narrative purpose, and really indulge your drawing without having to rely on words. I really admire the way you did that in your book, Edgar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to hand it to both of you guys. I don't read graphic novels often. And when I got asked to do this panel for you guys, I read both of you guys' books in their entirety. And I have to admit, I may be now into graphic novels, because for me, I fall asleep every time I try to read more than like one chapter of a book. So I may just have to flip through the pages and read the story via pictures. Maybe you guys just inspired me to be more of like reading graphic novels now.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
When I was living in France, I basically learned to speak French by just reading graphic novels, because you've always got a picture there to tell you what's going on.
Well, I love that. So you guys inspired me to read more graphic novels, but who are some of you guys' inspirations, or movies, novels that had influences on when you guys, not only became graphic novelists, but for these books specifically?
I think for me, I was really inspired by the best graphic novel about food that I'd read was Chicken with Plums by Marjane Satrapi, who's the same author as the same author who wrote Persepolis. So that was really a really enjoyable story about family and food that really resonated with me. But I also read a lot of, I enjoyed a lot of food. There's a great film called The Delicatessen by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And there's a really interesting book about the French restaurant system and the Michelin star system called The Perfectionist by Rudolf Chelminsky. So those were really big influences on my process.
All right,
That's
Edgar.
great. Yeah, and on my part, it was a lot of Japanese comic, manga, and anime. Like it's not like a specific title, but I love how Japanese drawing the food in the scene in their stories. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Hayao Miyazaki with Ghibli, Studio Ghibli, like Spirit Away. That kind of movie where everything looks delicious, ramen, beef, and that's kind of the world that I like and I'm inspired of, and a lot of Japanese comic and anime, how they draw the everyday life and food is just impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to tell everyone about your books? Anything? You guys are the authors. You guys are the artists.
I hope they like it and enjoy it and eat a lot, a lot of enchiladas and Mexican food when they are reading it. It would be great. I don't know.
That was good.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I hope people read the book and enjoy it. Really, I definitely feel personally, with this year of or 18 months now of pandemic, everyone's had a really tough year, and it's been especially difficult on people in the restaurant industry. Anyone who's works in a kitchen or works as a waiter or anything has had certainly in the UK, and I imagine it's been difficult in the US as well. It's had a really tough time. So I hope that even if not everyone can necessarily go to restaurants, and not everyone necessarily feels safe going out to restaurants, depending on what the COVID rate is like in your area. I hope that people can enjoy this book and at least feel a little nostalgia for the time when we could just freely waltz around in restaurants and bars and eat and drink.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Wow, so that looks amazing, Nikki.
Yeah.
Put your finishing touches. I also added some rice, and I'm going to add some cilantro flakes, dried cilantro flakes, and some avocado as well on top.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll give you a better look, James, if you can see.
Yeah, wow, that looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great,
So I'll add some cilantro myself.
Yes.
It's a controversial choice, though, isn't it? A lot of people don't like it.
And it depends on if you use fresh or if you use dried flakes. I prefer dried flakes when I'm making some dishes because it's very hard to chop cilantro. Am I right, Edgar?
Yeah, you need a lot of skills because it's so tiny, and you need a really good knife to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's very tiny, and it's a spice that doesn't cut well without a sharp knife. You're right. All right. So did you guys think you're going to become a better cook after drawing these books or this dish?
I certainly hope so.
Do you guys cook at all? Do you cook, James?
Yeah,
during the pandemic when everything was closed, did you cook?
Yeah, certainly even before the pandemic, actually, I cooked a lot, though all the research and all the work for this book really actually gave me a greater impression of, made me even more impressed by the skills of people who cook professionally. It's such a different world from cooking at home because of the sheer volume that you often have to cook. It's one thing to cook a meal for, 4 people or something, and it doesn't matter if you're a bit late and you've got all the time in the world to prep. But people who work in restaurants and are, chopping 100 onions while sauteing something else, it really blows my mind how much skill and speed they're able to work with. So it's given me a lot of respect for people who work in the restaurant industry.
I fully agree with that. I mean, I'm an amateur self-taught cook. I just cook basically for me and my husband, but I'm telling you, it's hard. The multitasking and you gotta, exactly like what you said, taste it while you're going and making sure you're not overcooking something. It's hard. So definitely the restaurant industry, was probably hit really hard during the pandemic, but hopefully they can bounce back,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
year. Edgar, what about you? Do you cook?
Yeah, I actually, one of my favorite dish to cook is enchiladas verdes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yay! Well, thank you for saying these look good. So here's my final dish. I took it out of the pan, but you guys, wow, spot on there, Edgar.
Yeah, I think I have hungry now.
James, that is so true to your book, how you draw.
Yeah,
you
here we go. So I'll hold it up a little bit to get a better angle.
Yeah.
We've got all the ingredients going straight in there.
Everything. And then that final dish is in the middle. Wow.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of beef there in the middle, the julienne onions just above, red sauce all around. We've got the tortillas down here, mushrooms just sneaking up here, a little bit of cilantro just along the top.
Yeah, you definitely never had enchiladas before, but
no.
okay.
I realized they need to be somewhat more rolled up.
No, it's great. It's so interesting how drastically different both of you guys is, and even mine are from each other. It's insane.
Yeah.
We all did it together in real time. It's very interesting. Wow, I can't believe how me and Edgar are so spot on though. Good job, Edgar. I did you proud.
Thank you. I just want to grab some of that enchilada,
I know, and I want to start making the enchiladas on James's because he's got all the ingredients just laying there for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the first ever IDW Comics Kitchen. We hope you guys enjoyed this tasty panel. If you head over to idwpublishing.com, you can download a special Comics Kitchen sampler that includes extended previews of both of these graphic novels. You got Onion Skin and The Delicacy. So you also will get the recipe that I developed for this panel. So thank you both to Edgar and to James. This was so much fun. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Well, thanks so much.